I see a bunch of people logged in early, so I'm logging in early. If you would, confirm that you can see the picture okay and that you can hear me okay. Yeah, it's going to be a little dark. I'm not set up for doing video in the evening. And well, the sun isn't down yet. It's on its way down. And my lights here aren't all that great. So when the sun goes completely down, I do have a battery operated light that I can turn on, but I don't want to turn it on. This could go, it's going to go easily an hour, possibly towards the second hour. I've got a lot of information for you, and I don't know how long that that light will last. So I'm going to hold off until it actually gets darker. Um, it is a new webcam. Uh, thank you all for that. I mentioned it before. It wasn't very expensive, but the contributions you make paid for it. This is a fundraising video, although you're not obligated to. But if you think you get something out of it, I've got a number of people that already contributed. Feel free. I need to get that gimbal camera that's covert. Appreciate everybody logging in like that. And I need to get that live software. So when we do this, I can actually put pictures up of what I'm talking about or video clips. There's a lot of things that I need to do when we're doing these things live that I can't show you right now. Okay, how are we for time? We'll start in about a minute. I've got about 10 pages of notes, or 10 half pages like this, or outline. And because there's so much information here, I'll probably be looking down and reading it a fair amount. I'll try not to be too obnoxious about it, but please bear with me. It's the first time I've done anything like this, but I'm very comfortable now with the way I'm going to handle this subject matter. It can be handled a lot of different ways. I thought about this for a number of months, and I've spent several weeks preparing for this. So hopefully when we're done, you're going to agree. Okay, 6 o'clock. So we're going to get started. A lot of people haven't logged in, but we can't wait. We can't wait forever. I do start off with a disclaimer, a quick mention of what I'll cover, and hopefully some more people will come up. The $ at the bottom is not going to function for this video. It really needs to be done through either Google Pay or GoFundMe. This is a particular type of video, and I was told that the $ would not function at the bottom of the chat. Okay. Well, still missing a few important people, but let me get on first of all with the disclaimer. What I'm going to be talking about really applies in this area. It would apply in Manizales because I dabble a little bit there. It certainly applies in Armenia, but it really won't apply directly in Medellin. That's really a different animal. It's really money centric, and there's so much that goes on there that's about the dollar. And where I live and what we're going to talk about, it's just normal Colombia. Light a candle. Okay. What I'm not going to cover is I'm not going to go into any detail about how to get hookers or anything like that. I've actually looked into it, so in case I ever wanted to talk about it, and when people were here in person, I told them a few things that I learned, but it's not anything that I have any need to do or plans. I will just do a quick mention on it, and a non-traditional alternative I'll talk a little bit about. But for the most part, this is about meeting people, to be good friends or dates, girlfriends, who knows, maybe even a wife at some point. And what I'm going to cover basically is going to be the history and background of the attitudes that the girls have. I think it's really important to know where they're coming from and how they think. Well, the disclaimer is everything that I cover, aside from being for this area, um, is there's going to be a lot of generalization. It's not going to apply to every person, but if you've got 100 girls out there, it'll probably apply to 60 to 70% of them. Most people you're going to run into, it'll apply. But when you're doing something like this, I can't cover every situation. So all I can do, so you know what to expect or how to approach something, is to generalize. So the history and background of how they got their attitudes is critical in having success. And it goes back the last 2 or 3 generations. Second thing, I'm going to cover the girls themselves, different age groups. We'll get to it. Third, I'll talk about how to meet them, different ways to meet a girl, a girlfriend, a date, future wife. Number 4, the importance of creating a network. And number 5, I've got a whole bunch of various tips that I'm going to be giving you. Turning the pages. Okay, go to the background. Now, pretty much all of you, or at least most of you, have been watching the last few videos where I talked about the FARC and some of the history. So I'm not going to go over that. But in a nutshell, there's been decades of turmoil here. Whether it's been political with political assassinations and bombings, whether it's been, the narcos that have taken over areas and, sell the drugs and all the things that drug gangs bring, or if it's just been the so-called socialist groups like the FARC. It's all been a violent history that today you don't really see to any extent anyway. Today it's no worse than pretty much anywhere, but there was a time when it was absolutely horrible. And what that did was it suppressed the economy. You can't have that go on and have a thriving economy. You had people that were afraid to even go to work. Unemployment in those days was more than half of the people that were of working age couldn't find a job. People were really poor, really destitute because of that. I mean, through the course of those years, there was 230 some odd thousand people killed in this country. I mean, that's a lot. That's a huge amount. Plus, I'll add one more factor here, is that being a bit of a machismo culture, cheating ran rampant, and it still does to a certain extent. Not like it used to be. It used to be expected. So all of those things affected great grandma, grandma, and the mother of whoever you're going to date, whoever you're going to meet. All of those times, kind of like imagine living through the Great Depression and how the next generation, the generation after, how it affected them and how it altered the way they looked at things. They ran over and they turned the light off as soon as it wasn't needed. And they did all these things that were, today you'd look and it was kind of extreme and pointless, but it becomes ingrained in you because it's a matter of survival. So great grandma, grandma, and ma have handed down certain principles. And that's where I get to the point here, finally. Okay, first of all, Girls are taught that, and we're talking about people that are pretty much 40 and under, that, well, girls are, they're taught that practical considerations should be made over the heart. Now, they're very passionate people, and they're always talking about the heart and love, and I mean, it's just, they live and breathe it. But when it comes down to making a decision, practical consideration should take priority over the heart. Second, age should take priority over youth. And that speaks to a lot of the cheating issues. It happens primarily younger, and I say younger, I'll say, 30s and below, or 40s. Well, by the time you get up into your 30s, it becomes less of a problem here. But age also represents a little more secure in what they're doing, which comes to the third one. Security is more important than romance. So they're taught to try to find romance within the security. And if you look at the history, it makes perfect sense. So it changes the way that these people that you're going to meet, it changes the way that they view things as compared to what you're familiar with. Does the Catholic Church not influence dating? Having had 2 Colombian girlfriends, then meet the family. Catholic Church has some influence, but not so much. Nowhere near what it used to have. And despite the Catholic Church, and they can act very religious and go and do all the things that they do in the Catholic Church and the ceremony, and this holds true going back almost 20 years. In my experience with this, it's almost a superficial thing. They can go to the Catholic Church and be very pious and do all the things in public, and they can meet you and want to hit the sack. I say that is, there's a dichotomy here. So let me move on here. This is about 50-50, where this speaks to your point a bit. No chaperones. Traditional. About half of the people you're going to meet are going to be traditional. They're going to expect courtship, flowers and candy, meet the family. You see, it goes right to your question. As a matter of fact, a good portion of this, sad to say, is going to be kind of a lecture thing. So you may want to hold some questions until later. I suggest you take some notes. And if you've got a question that comes up, you might want to hold on to it, but I'll still try to answer it if it pops up. We definitely will do all the questions until you're done, when this is over. The other half are more liberal minded. They're more USA minded, I guess you would say. More willing to just kind of wing it, go out unchaperoned, and if chemistry hits things right, first, second, third base, home plate, or whatever, those things are just almost hippie child of the 60s attitude towards sex. So I would say there's a good half that are like that. They may put on a different front, but because reputation, respect is really important. And don't ever do anything to cause somebody to look like some kind of tramp. Just because maybe she just really hit it off with you and hasn't been with anybody in a while and wants to play around or something, doesn't mean she's a slut. And the last thing you need to do is act like that. It'll guarantee that you won't see her again, but also guarantee that you may not see a whole bunch of people, because it's not the biggest community in the world. I want to talk about ages and issues related to ages. But first of all, as you go into this, it's really important that you know yourself. And you say, well, I'm 60 years old. Of course, I know myself. Well, I started on my quest a number of months ago uh, with one idea of what I was looking for, and realized over the last few months that I actually wanted something different. And it surprised me because for a number of years, as I was going through, getting healthy, getting better from my situation, I really had this idea of what I wanted, and it's not that way anymore. So be honest with yourself and know what you're actually looking for. Uh, I mean, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a family? Are you looking to have kids? Are you just looking for a girlfriend? If you want a girlfriend, how close do you want her to be? I'm really difficult to get along with, so I have to take that into account. Are you just looking for a really good friend, a friend with benefits, or somebody just to hang out with once in a while, or to go with you to different places? Are you just looking for a hookup? So be honest with yourself about what it is you're looking for. Also, be honest with them. They hate liars and they hate cheaters. Hate liars, hate cheaters. Can I say it a third time? Passionately hate liars and cheaters. They're afraid of it. And the younger they are, the less apt they've had terrible situations over it. But the older they are, and when I say older, I say 20s on up, mid to later 20s and up, they've probably been burned pretty good once or twice because some of that machismo culture is still here. And that could be, all kinds of promises and left her with a kid or two and then disappeared and left her on her own. It could be those horror stories exist here. And so there's a fear of it, obviously. Beware and don't forget what mom always taught them. So never say what they want to hear. Always be honest with them. You'll get a lot more respect. And I actually had one that I probably told her everything in the world that she didn't want to hear. And we ended up, okay, that's it. And a couple days later, she got back and she wanted to meet up again. Um, Honesty goes a long way. And it may take them a little bit to adjust to it, but it's important. Always say the truth. To keep respect for yourself, for them, the way they see you is really important. Okay, let's talk about ages a little bit. Age group, and again, we're generalizing, but we'll say 30 to 40. They probably have kids. Now, as they get up to 40 and past, um, for me, that's a problematic age group, and it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the way they think. But as you get up there, they may have kids that have moved along. But 30 to 40 and younger even, but 30 to 40, good chance they're going to have kids. So do you want to have a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old? Is that okay with you? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Uh, but don't date her if that's absolutely out of the, if there's absolutely no way you want to get involved in that, then don't date her. They're more likely to be on the formal side. Now, I mentioned 50 this way, 50% that way. The 30 to 40 group, it's heavier. That's weighted more on the formal, meet the parents and do all those things properly. Um, I I went out with one that and I did in a 2 month period of time. I dated over 50 girls, but I go back. I started in Manizales trying to figure it out how to get through this. Made a few mistakes, knowing that I was going to be moving here, and then, excuse me, kind of dialed it up. And once I figured it out, I just went full bore trying to figure out who I could meet. But I wasn't just looking for a girlfriend. I was trying to also create a network of friends, which we'll talk about. But what was I? What was I? Oh, so I see this girl, and she came up to my apartment, and we sat there, and she was being very formal, and to me it wasn't like, okay, you know, we need to go in the bedroom. It wasn't like that, but she was just very standoffish, and I'm not a formal person anyway. And if you're too formal, it's like I'm really not very interested. And so, you know, everything went according to the formality plan, and she left, and I had no intention of seeing her again. And then she kept writing back, and I, be honest, and I told her, I said, I'm not a formal person. I'm not comfortable with that. I can't do that. For me, it's play acting. It's not how I am. I'm also not, you know, she was 30 something, but, um, you know, I'm certainly not a child. She's not a child. We don't need to play those games. I'm just not prepared to do that. We ended up seeing each other a few more times after that because she just kept coming back and coming back. And the time that she came back, again, I'm not going to get graphic on these things, but she was ready to um, commit. um, because she thought in her mind that I wouldn't respect her if she didn't act that way. And I'm sure you can understand that because the US used to be like that also. But in my case, it's not like, you know, don't confuse this or try to read between the lines. It wasn't like, oh, you're not going to put out, so I want to talk. It wasn't that at all. It's that formality. I'm just not comfortable with it. I'm not going to date somebody. I mean, I'm 65 years old. I could die tomorrow, right? I'm not going to date somebody for 2 or 3 years and meet their parents and go through all this stuff before the life that I'm looking for starts to come to fruition. I'm trying to live my life now. And so, any way that I can shortcut that without making any kind of big mistakes, that's what I'm doing. Um, Also, a trait that I noticed in this age group is they tend to be more demanding about things, which to me is really kind of annoying. I'm a kind of a, I guess you'd say I'm kind of an alpha guy anyway, and I don't like to be told things, and you know, I pretty much know my mind about what I want with things, and I won't be treated like a child. And I've noticed quite a few in this age group had that tendency, and it was just kind of a turn off for me. It was just kind of annoying. So for those reasons, that age group became less desirable. Now I should mention that actually I was going to mention it later, but my favorite girls that I've met that are still friends that I still see uh, was 18, 23, 32, and 42. Um, Age wasn't really the thing for me. And I'm going to advise you to not let that get in your way, to date a wide spectrum. Um, let's go to 20 to 30 years old. Younger girls tend to be younger, 20 to 30, tend to be more flexible with less bad experiences, as I mentioned. They're more likely to have goals that they're working on to achieve, such as school or start a business. Those are the two biggies. And it seems like almost everybody you meet in this age group is probably in school. And also, you'll meet the biggest group of biggest percentage that are not with kids. A lot of them are. A lot of them are. A lot of them get pregnant, you know, just like in the USA, 15, 16 years old, maybe they got pregnant. But a lot of them aren't because they're focusing on their goal. You know, they want to achieve their goal, and they can't do that if they hook up with some bad dude. And they're aware of that. And I appreciate them because it tells me they're more level headed. Um, so that age group, the traits of it was more attractive actually. Um, they will expect some level of support, and I don't mean support like, well, you just got to pay them. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. But support in that if they're going to school, that you respect that and you support that they're going, and you not try to drag them out of it or get them to skip classes. Um, if they're up against the wall and they need $3 for the bus for the week or something, you know, they're probably going to hit you up for it. Not at first, but if they get closer to you, and it's, you know, it's up to you what, you know, what you want to do. And I'll speak to the money aspect here in a bit. It's important to know, it's important to talk about, but this isn't about money. Really, I can tell you, remember the intro, I go back and I said, here's the mindset and the attitude, and where that comes from. That's where this comes from. If you have a young one with 1 or 2 or 3 kids and they're not working, beware, because that's where you're likely to, I mean, to live. She needs somebody to take care of her, right? That doesn't mean it's going to break the bank, but you know, that's taking on an awful lot of stuff. That's a lot of commitment. And the last thing you want to do is take on a commitment, then turn around, I don't want that 3 months later and walk out the door. You don't want to be that kind of guy. Now, understand here, and don't take this the wrong way, but the legal age here for in any situation is 14 years old. So, you know, be careful with, well, in general, 18 and up is considered to be okay. I mean, 14 may be legal, but it's considered, you know, it's looked at here, you know, the same as in the US. I mean, it's like pedophilia. Just because it's legal doesn't mean but I don't know how you would run into somebody like that anyway. I will say beware, though. When I was in Manizales, when I started out trying to figure this out, I contacted a number of people with different ages, and this one was, I think, 21, and so she was actually the youngest one of the 7 or 8 that I contacted. Most of them were older. So she was going to be near where I lived, and she wanted to just stop by. Well, that's great. It's easy for me. I just got over the flu. The second time I was sick in Colombia. Well, the first time. Second time was just a few weeks ago, a week or 2 ago. So anyway, she comes up to my apartment. But when I see her in person, she looked like, whoa, you're pretty young. You know, it's like, you're not 21. No, I'm 18. But if I put 18, then maybe I get less contacts or something. So we talked a little bit, and she wanted to learn some English. She'd been taking English classes, you know, so we sat there and compared English words, and it was fun. She had a nice personality and stuff. And then, you know, she said, well, I got things to do, and I invited her on her way, and she was very nice. It wasn't but a few days later, she wanted to come back. She was nearby again. I wasn't doing anything. Yeah, sure. You know, it was funny last time, so she came up. She comes up in one of those plaid schoolgirl outfits. I said, wait a minute. If you're 18, you're already out of school. And so comes to pass, she's 16 years old. I said, no, it's not for me. She wasn't for me anyway, but it was funny and stuff. But then all of a sudden I become uncomfortable or even coming to my apartment. So, you know, keep your eye out for that. I don't know if I should be telling you these stories. I swear to God, you know, says I'm telling you. You will see a lot of Colombian men that are older men, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, with younger girls, teens, 20s, 30s. You'll see that a lot. I've actually put it in my video a couple times where I took a little clip 2 times where there was a guy who was like 50 or 60 years old, I'm guessing, with a girl that looked like she was probably 20, 22. It's hard for me to tell. I mean, but everybody looks young when you're 65. But you'll see this actually a fair amount. And again, it kind of goes back to, what did mom teach them? You know, it's they're more steady, more secure, more apt to have a job, and stability in your life is an important thing. And also keep in mind, that the divorce rate in Colombia, what is it, something like the third lowest in the world? I mean, divorces don't happen very much. It's not just because of the Catholic Church aspect of it. Uh, it's the women. There's a loyalty about them. Now, I'm not talking about the gold diggers in Medellin. I'm talking about just general. It's part of the culture of Colombia as a whole for them to be very loyal. And even if they create a situation that tends to be more practical than romance, more practical, he's going to be a good supporter, he's going to take good care of me, and I'm going to love him for that. And they become very loyal. So you'll see that quite a bit. So age gaps here are really not so important. And I'm glad because, I don't care. I'm looking for type of person. I don't really care where I find it. The one that's 42 actually has become a very good friend of mine. Um, I met her when I was in Manizales. Uh, she was there for a short period of time, and then she's from here, and I see her fairly often. She's helped me with a lot of things. We've become very good friends. She asks me how's the dating going, and I tell her. What's going on, and she's actually helped me with some of this information. So some things you should know. um, okay, many have little concern about looks or age, so I jumped ahead. Oh, language. Many 50-50 are very willing to deal with you with your English even if they have little to no English. They're okay with Google Translate, with you using weak Spanish. My Spanish is, I'll say, minimal. It's basic. I can get by on my own. I do fine. But when I'm having conversation, there's just so many, different verbs, and I'll use the wrong one. Is it dihe, dice? I don't know. There's so many things like that I don't know, but I can put out enough words. I have a pretty good vocabulary where they understand what I'm saying, and sometimes they'll help me and clue me in. Sometimes they just let it pass so that we don't stop and dwell on that. We can try to have a conversation. But I will warn you, this is a huge beware. When it comes to the Google Translator, it is so easy to make a mistake. First of all, don't write a book. Write in short bursts, sentences or two, because the translator digests those better than if you write a book. Um, it doesn't pick up more context. It seems like it almost does less. Also, try to learn what words to actually use. Don't use things that, well, for example, what came up the other day, um, we're in the same boat. That has no meaning. They didn't know what I was talking about. This is actually to a guy, but didn't know what I was talking about. So try to choose your words with, basic words. But it's easy to insult somebody when you weren't being insulting in the least. So always take that into account. And if you hook up with somebody that you're in the situation, need to use the translator, be sure that you tell them and then remind them every so often, maybe every time you see them, that you will never write anything to insult them. And if it comes across as an insult, then understand it's probably a mistranslation. I've had to do that many times, but telling them that has saved a lot of problems. Now, they'll laugh and tell me the way it comes across to them. And I go, oh my God, I never meant that. But it can take a situation where you're having fun and you want to see this person again, and all of a sudden you look like a jerk and they don't ever want to talk to you, and it's very, very likely won't even tell you why. So beware of that. And if you're going to use a translator, warn them. because they're not seeing gringos here. I mean, it's few and far between. Yeah, almost everybody I met, I was the first non-Colombian person they ever met in their life. There's only a handful that didn't apply. Now, Medellin, that's a whole other ballgame, and that's another reason we're not talking about Medellin. Okay, some more things you should know. You are expected to pay for the date. It's absolutely that's the case. It doesn't matter if she has a good job and she's got a car and all of that, and you're going to run into quite a few of those. Doesn't matter. You're supposed to pay for the day. You're also expected to pay for transportation. So if a girl needs to come to you and take the bus or the taxi and has to return, you want to figure that in and just tell them. I learned pretty quick that they may not say anything, but then they look at you like you're some kind of cheapskate. And it's just because of, let's go back to what was ingrained in them by their mothers. Again, it's not gold digging, but why should they lose money in order to see you? They can maybe see somebody else who will understand that and take care of that for them. So it doesn't amount to much. I mean, um, and once I learned, I would give them, 10,000, what's $3, $4 or something, and saves for transport. And they would say, okay, thank you, I appreciate it. And they appreciated that I recognized that. $3, $4 isn't buying anything. It's just being what you should be. If you have a problem with that, or you think that's wrong, then you will have trouble dating here. Um, as I said, none want a cheapskate. They'll actually view it as a character flaw, like being a liar. And they won't want you. If you're a cheapskate, they're not interested. Again, it's not about being a gold digger. It's not like, they're trying to get you to empty your wallet. But if it costs them to come and see you, then you should cover it. And we're not talking, but a few dollars. Hold on, question. Financial security in dating is important. Is it tough to strike a balance between showing you have financial means, which that's nobody's business? I strongly recommend. Why do you need to show them? While also not attracting unwanted attention, pickpocketers. I have no idea why you would want to show them if you have financial means. I tell them I'm poor because I went through a spell when I was doing this where I was dirt poor and I couldn't afford to do jack squat. Mostly we would just meet. Most of the dates I'd meet at my apartment because it didn't cost me anything. And when I would give them a few dollars for the bus and taxi, that might be all the money I had for the week or something. But I told them, I said, if you're looking for somebody with money, you got the wrong guy. And nobody backed out because this, as a matter of fact, if you show money, it's crass, and they will lose respect for it. Some of them may say, "Oh, well, if he wants to wave that money at me, I'll go after it." They may very well do that because at that point they might see you as, well, maybe that's what you expect, so why not take it? But they will have absolutely no respect for it, and you'll have no future with that. No, showing off your money is ridiculous. Don't do that in any way. Don't go wear flashy jewelry. I mean, for what? It's not that kind of culture. You just look ostentatious. You look like you're trying to be a big shot, and that's a turnoff. Um, yeah, and I mentioned here, there's no need to be extravagant. Even now, where financially I'm much better shape, if I see somebody go out, I'll pay for lunch, and I give them, the bus or maybe taxi, but that's it. I mean, the other day there was somebody I was seeing, and like they were coming down with a flu, like maybe that's where I got it. I don't remember if it was before or after. And we were out walking. We went by a pharmacy, so I went in. I asked the pharmacy, for her nasal passages, and he gave a medicine for it, and I think it cost me like 5,000 pesos or something. I gave it to her. She was, really, really happy, that I did that. She found it very thoughtful and considerate, and it certainly wasn't, any money. It was $1.50. So it's not like I, blew a lot of money, but it was a gesture. So get out of your mind this Medellin mentality where guys are going there and they're basically buying women. Um, and women see that, and it just kind of feeds itself. And they've created this rat wheel there. And not to say they're not all like that in Medellin, but you're going to find so many, because when you have tens of thousands of Europeans and North Americans coming in doing that, thinking, well, that's what it is, then that's what you create. But that is not what's here. And so, be very careful about that. Um, there's no point in being showy or extravagant. Um, okay, this is an obvious one, but I got to bring it up. I'm sure you've heard it before. Be clean. What they're used to is guys with not only clean, but with aftershave, clothes to the T if they're going on a date. Now, I kind of buck that trend because I am who I am. And I wear my black t-shirts and my black jeans, and I don't wear aftershave, but I shower several times a day. I'm very clean, and they accept that. Plus, it kind of plays into the, I tell them how poor I am. I wear these beat up old tennis shoes and, t-shirts everywhere, and, I'm poor, but I have enough to live a pretty nice life, and that's good enough. And that's almost kind of a built-in screening thing. I haven't had many back away from that, but I think I can't even think of any, but I'm sure there was a couple that might have you know turned them in the other direction. But then I wouldn't have been interested anyway, right? Because at that time I really was poor. Okay, I know you know this too, but I got to tell you, expect they're going to be late. When they tell you that they're leaving the house, what they really mean is they're getting ready to get in the shower. They're going to tell you that they've arrived. And what they really mean is they're still waiting for a taxi to show up. So it's maddening. It drives me crazy. I tell them all. And if we go past the first date or two, if we become friends, I keep hammering that home, and they will adjust to it and start looking at things on time. And if they're late, it's only a couple minutes, because it drives me crazy. It can kind of ruin my day. I'm just like that. I told you I'm problematic. I'm not the best person in the world for getting along with things. Like, if it bothers me, it bothers me. But I let them know, and I'm always polite about it. I'm never nasty about it. I never tell them they have to do this or have to do that. But most people here are just very nice, very friendly. And if you say that's something that really does, bother me, I made a dinner. Now, if any of you cook, you know that when it's cooked and when it's ready, that's time to eat, and it just degrades from that point on. And I made a dinner, and somebody showed up a half an hour later. The food was practically inedible for me. I mean, it's like I'm fussy about that. Uh, she came and, oh, it's great, and all that, but it isn't. So I didn't make a big deal out of it, but it's important to tell them where you're coming from, so you don't run into things like that. Once they understand, see, they don't get it because it's not that culture. But once they understand it's important to you, they'll do that, and it makes life a lot simpler. Um, Last thing on that page: beware of jealousy. Um, I've never seen the passion of jealousy like I've seen here. Now, they're not all like that, and most of them that are still my friends, or I'm still seeing romantically, they're not like that, because I don't. I have a hard time dealing with it. My ex-wife, who was Colombian, was never like that. But we saw lots of people when I lived here before. I mean, you don't want to be Lorena Bobbitt's target. You don't want to, you know, wake up with a knife in your back, or, I mean, they can just kind of go off the deep end because culturally it's almost admired. It's like that just means you really care, and I can't stand it. And where I run into it is um, they know that I'm dating, and so then I'll get somebody. Well, how many people did you see this week? Well, and I'll talk about this shortly, but um, it's not your business. Doesn't matter. And well, are you seeing somebody, steady? And they ask these prying questions because they're jealous, and I don't want any part of that, and I won't play that game with them. So be yourself, be honest, be an alpha. They do not have a lot of respect for beta males. So if you're a milk toast, yes, dear, anything that you want, okay. If you, yeah, okay, it's fine. You punch me in the face, that's cool. I mean, however you want to envision a beta male. Um, I kind of envision a beta male as a woman. They don't want to date a woman. They want to date a man, and that means it doesn't mean be rude. It doesn't mean be crude, but it does mean be honest, know what you want in life, speak your mind, be man enough to listen to what they have to say. And if you're deciding to do something, take that into account, maybe do that, but not because, you're being subservient to them, but it's because you're treating them like the princess that she is, kind of thing. They love that image of the knight and the princess. So it's really important that you will get respect as a man, and they will find you much more attractive if you're like that. I mean, look at me. I'm 65-year-old fat man with very little money, and I can't even decide who I want to stick with right now. And just to give you a quick idea here, I'm going to show you two apps. I've actually stopped looking. Bear with me. I think you can see this on the thing. Can you see that? Okay, these circles, those are females. This is just in the Facebook dating, and it's in the last month. And I'm not even looking. They're contacting me. They want to meet up. And hold on, bear with me. That's a great question. You should lead it with 4 question marks, though, or I'd miss it. Okay, and here is another app. They're all like on the shelf waiting. There's it's certainly not buying them. I didn't have money for it. um, it's the things I'm telling you. If they're so jealous, is there a chance you will encounter them while out in public with a date or a friend? Yeah, there is, but I make it clear. I let them know. Yeah, I'm looking. And if they're that jealous, then I'm not interested, and I tell them I'm not interested. Uh, but if you're honest with them along the way, then they're more apt to trust you. And everybody's not insanely jealous, So the ones that are insanely jealous, for me, I just kind of write them off. And there's the 42-year-old that's a friend. Every once in a while, she'll act up, and then I tell her, I say, "You're going to do that, we just can't ever talk again." But then she'll go back to calm and normal, and then we can talk about the dates, and she can be very helpful. But every once in a while, it's like, well, why aren't we more? It's like, well, we already know why. So I don't know. To me, it's kind of poisonous. I'm just giving you a warning that they're out there, and there's quite a few of them, and there's varying degrees of it. But honesty will go a long way to cut through that stuff. Um, I didn't have a lot of a problem anyway, because when I was going through most of these dates, most of them, vast majority, were coming here to my apartment, so we weren't going out where anybody would see anyway. Now, was it a problem having a girl come to a stranger's apartment? It would normally be, but my building is pretty well known. There's 24-hour security here, and I'm in the best part of town. And that instantly seemed to put them at ease. There were only a couple where it was a deal breaker. For the most part, it really wasn't an issue because they knew that they're going to be okay and they're going to be safe here. Plus, I was honest, in our conversations before we even got to the point of a date. People can sense honesty, and so they just kind of had a bit of a trust already before they came. Um, don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to, cut something loose. Like if she's too jealous, and I don't advise you to get into, insulting them by telling them how they are, uh, but just say, well, it's not going to work out. It's, my personality just doesn't fit your personality. And you don't need to go into any detail. It really doesn't matter. You've only had one or two dates with a person. If you haven't picked it up by then, you're not watching what you're doing. So, it's not like there's a whole lot invested in this by either of you. So, you just cut it loose. Um, so don't be afraid to say no. But keep in mind that while you're going through these dates, everybody's not going to be a girlfriend. But there's a lot of them that you're going to run into that maybe they work at the phone company, or maybe maybe they own a haircutting salon. Maybe you create a network of friends out of these people. It's like, okay, it's not going to be romantic, but we can be friends. And almost all of them have been willing to be friends. They're very friendly people. And just knowing somebody that speaks English from another country, that's attractive. That's attractive to them. And if you're honest, if you're a good person, that's also attractive. And they want good people in their life. So, don't be afraid to say no, but do make a point to make friends out of them. I kind of survive by the network of people that I know. Um, Now we're going to get to how to meet. This is pretty important, right? Okay, I landed. I'm here in Armenia. I'm in Manizales or wherever, and I want to meet somebody. How do I go about it? Is it all on the internet? Well, some's on the internet. I just showed you. But first of all, you meet in person. Now, while again, I'm going to compare to Medellin. Medellin, this is a place to meet on the street. It is not a place in Manizales or Armenia to meet. It's actually kind of rude. Somebody mentioned chaperone. It kind of goes back to that. I mean, why would a perfect stranger just walk up to a girl? It's disrespectful. Here, it's a little more conservative thinking here. You don't want to try to pick somebody up on the street. If you're both waiting for a bus and she's smiling and makes some eye contact, maybe you can break the ice. That might be all right if she's receptive to it. But for the most part, it's a no-no. And I kind of found out the hard way. I couldn't figure out why I was just being nice and polite, and I was getting, looks like would kill. I said, "Look, I'm sorry, Um, don't do that." But in a store is fine. So they're behind the counter in a store. Strike up a conversation, make a joke. They love a sense of humor, like women everywhere. If you've got game with the jokes, it's like even bad jokes, they appreciate it. I'm full of bad jokes. That's a good place. I've met a number of people. As a matter of fact, one time I was with a friend, female. Almost all my friends are female because of this. Um, so this friend, we were down in 14, where it's the walking street, and she wanted to find a t-shirt. So we're walking and she's jumping in boutiques, and I was doing some video work. This was a few months back on some video. You may remember the Venezuelan guy with a saxophone. That was the day. So we're walking down. She sees this really small t-shirt shop in this nice area. So she goes in. She's looking at t-shirts, and the girl that was taking care of her, she was really funny, and I knew enough Spanish to get her joke. She was just really a happy-go-lucky person, laughing. And so I start joking with her. My friend's off looking at shirts, and we're joking. And she said something about maybe I can help her with her English. And I said, yeah, if you help me with your Spanish. And so she was serious. So she wanted my contact information. So she gave me her number for WhatsApp. And so we exchanged. The other girl was there, but she says, "Well, is that your girlfriend? Is this rude?" No, she's just my friend. It's like, yeah, we can do this. And I was thinking it could actually be language. We ended up dating a couple times. She was a lot of fun. wasn't It wasn't it wasn't my cup of tea. Perfectly fine person. She was, I don't know, somewhere in her 20s. Uh, didn't suit what I need or what I'm looking for, but I met her that way by happenstance, like you do in life. But you want to look for opportunities like that. You don't want to be you don't want to be obnoxious. You don't want to be loud. You don't want to be pushy. But use a sense of humor. Be very friendly, and doors will open for you. Um, let's see. Also, as you're dating with some of these things, and we've got a few more to cover here, but as you're dating, what'll happen is your circle of friends will grow. If you're doing this right and you're making these friends that, okay, they're not going to be love interests, but they're going to be friends, as that grows, you start getting some introductions. Now, for me, it was kind of awkward because I am so picky, I am so particular, and they're trying to be really nice, and they got a friend who's looking, and so they think you're doing something good, and there's a really good chance that for me it's a blind date. I didn't get a chance to screen or make a choice, and so it becomes really awkward for me. But for most people, they're not as weird as I am, and it's certainly a good way. And if you make friends with people, and some of them are good enough friends where you can explain those things, they can be a little more discriminating for you, and you can end up, having dates or going as a group with people, kind of growing that circle. Okay, number 3, I showed you on the internet. Now, I'm going to tell you the best ones. The best ones are the free ones. The free ones, because people here don't want to squat. They don't have $30 a month to waste on something like that. They're female. Guys come to them, right? So um, they're not gonna subscribe to these things, and many of them don't really function unless there's subscriptions going on. And you don't want to have to spend 30, 40, $50 or whatever the fees are. I did one Latin America for 2 months back when I was in Manizales, and I didn't know how poor I was going to be in the near future. And I ran into quite a few, but what I learned from that is that and Latin American Cupid, if you do subscribe, that's the good one. The one that you would think for Colombian Cupid, no, because if they all seem to sign up on these, they just don't really use them. So you'll find them there, but because it's free for them to sign up, it's free for you to sign up. You can put your profile there. Sorry, I'm kind of getting lost in my words here, but the Colombian Cupid handles Colombia. Latin America handles this. So because it has a wider reach, most of them will sign up on Latin American Cupid and may not sign up on Colombian Cupid. So in other words, you have a broader range of people in Colombia on Latin America than you do on the actual Colombian site. So if you're going to pay, don't pay for Colombia, pay for Latin America Cupid. I did meet a number of people through there, so it's fine. It's just it costs money. Now, the ones that are primarily used here is, first of all, is Tinder. Now, Medellin Tinder is like in the U.S. It's a hookup site. It's like, I'm horny tonight, and so what do we got here? That is not what it's used throughout the rest of Colombia or Ecuador. Uh, it's used just as a dating site because it's free. You can, if you hit on each other, You can write to each other and exchange information that costs nothing. You don't have to pay for Tinder, and they don't have to pay for Tinder. So that's a very popular site. You will find once in a while some hooker on there. In Medellin, it's common. I mean, I'm told that more are than not. But here, that's really not the case. Here, it's used as a dating site. Manizales was the same way. And of all the times I've gone through Tinder, I might have run into 3 or 4 that were actually hookers, and they actually would have dollar signs or something in their profile. Uh, so it's not an issue. It's actually a really good site to use. And the other one is the Facebook dating. It only works on your phone. It doesn't work on Facebook on your laptop. But if you're not on there, go on and fill out your profile. The only downside of that one is it locks everything. You can't screenshot, you can't copy and paste into the translator. So you can meet people there. I know enough Spanish so I can have a rudimentary conversation. If you don't, it'll be tough. So what you need to do is kind of direct them to your WhatsApp number. When you give them your WhatsApp number, it's like they don't want to put it in the phone. They'll give you theirs then. Well, if we're going to do it here, you do it. It's kind of strange, but that's the way it seems like almost everyone does that. So WhatsApp is the key. So you meet them on the Facebook, and then or on Tinder, and then you exchange your WhatsApp numbers, and then you talk on WhatsApp. And then you can use the translator all you want. And I need to use the translator if I'm actually in some conversations with somebody. It's a lot quicker. If I try to muddle through, I'm messing it up worse than the translator, and it takes me a while. Okay, and last thing that I'll say is a good place to meet are groups. So if you're a churchgoer, obviously that's a good place to go. Um, if you're part of a language exchange, I'll be doing a video next week. I'm in Manizales. The week after, probably, there's a pretty big, there look like 40 or 50 people in a language exchange not far from where I live, right here. And I'm sure it's not the only one, but there is a language exchange. So I'll go in, I'll do a video, I'll put the information up, but obviously there you're going to meet people that are trying to learn the language or maybe know a little bit, want to practice. Obviously a good place to meet. Another place is you can volunteer English in the schools. There's a lot of private schools for language, and you can go in and volunteer and say, look, I want to practice my Spanish, but I'm more than willing to sit down with 1, 2, 3 people and work with the language for them. You're not going to get paid for it, but you can meet people. You can meet friends. You can meet, you can meet a lot of people that way. Last thing is charity and foundations. You can get involved in things like that. In Ecuador, I was involved in, it wasn't for dating. I wasn't really prepared for dating there, but I met a fair amount of people. So, that's a good place to meet people. So those are common sense things, but those are the effective things here. Okay, some tips. And you can start throwing your questions if you want. Keep an open mind. When you're going through to decide who to date, when I first started, I was dating like the first couple weeks. I was dating people like later 30s into their 40s. I thought I'd be more comfortable. And then that's when I learned, based on the attitudes, it was too formal. It just didn't fit. But what I did from that point on is I took all the way from 18 to 48, and I would put those in. And then in my initial conversations, I would make a decision whether I wanted to meet them or not. So I would do some screening, but keep an open mind, broaden what you're looking for, and be more willing to meet up with somebody, even if they're not exactly what, it's like, well, they didn't hit all the boxes. Well, if they hit any of the boxes, About the only thing, I can't stand a fat girl. I may be a fat guy, but most of my life I wasn't. It wasn't until I got sick. But I just fat girls turn me off. I just can't deal with a fat girl. It's just how it is. So that was really the only deal breaker for me. I actually saw somebody that contacted me, and she was 62 years old. Uh, the only problem was she was ready to retire and sit in her living room on the sofa for the rest of her. We didn't hit it off at all, but I left those doors open. Salsa dancing would be a good meet spot. Well, salsa is actually kind of withering. You'll see it a lot in Medellin again, but in Manizales and Armenia, it's still here. But other dancing definitely, but the other dances are fairly prominent. Where 20 years ago salsa was it. I can't really say that anymore. And the new hip hop uh, stuff here, uh, drawing a blank of the name of it here, but it's not called hip hop. It's very popular also. But dancing in general, yeah, I'm really not a dancer. But you're right. Um, Dance hall is a good place. Okay, so because you're looking for friends and you never know where you're going to find a gem, I suggest that you widen your parameters for dating, but know what it is you're looking for. Um, yeah, this is where I brought up. I mentioned I dated, from 18 on up into the 40s, and you never. Well, that one I actually forgot about her, but till I was talking. Because you never know, and you create a network. And the 42-year-old, like I said, has become a really good friend. Um, Network. We're getting near the end. If if you date somebody and you size them up, are they out, or can they be a friend, or maybe they really hit those boxes, or maybe they draw your interest. In that case, you definitely want to pursue them. And my suggestion is, if you really find somebody you're interested in, stop your other dating while you figure that out. And then you don't have to. Speaking to the question earlier, um, no, that's not a new thing. No, the particular dance that I can't think of the type of music, and it's not a new thing. But if you go back 20 years, it didn't exist then, so it's new to me. Um, so great question. I will answer that. Colombia to Ecuador. Um, so you don't have you can be honest about dating other people. If you really find one that interests you, just put everything else on pause. It'll be there. Also, when you get this started, it will seem for a while like it's like every girl isn't going to want to see you that you might be interested in, and it may take a little bit to get things rolling. Just be patient. I think it took me, when I got here to Armenia, I think it took me about a month for things to start happening. But once they did, whoo, it really took off. It really took off. But part of that also was kind of dialing it in, and dialing myself in. Um, Okay. Do not discuss your dating ever, 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 ever. And remember, they don't like liars and cheaters. So if you start discussing your dates, you're going to end up being a liar. Um, so you need to find your way to not put yourself in that situation. And know what you want, date anyway. Don't be foolish. See that? Dollar signs, don't be foolish. Dollar signs. Don't be foolish with your money. We already covered that. So, in summary, remember the culture, remember the attitudes, where they come from. It's not directly dollar motivated, but having security in their life, having somebody they can trust and rely on. It's not going to cheat on them, that's not going to abuse them, um, that they can be comfortable and not have to struggle. It's not about being rich. Those are attitudes they have. And it doesn't matter if you're a gringo or not a gringo. That's the attitude. Be alpha, but be polite. I can tell you that I am very alpha with women because it's my nature. I don't have to pretend. It's how I am, and the reaction to it here is way different. I can open a door here and be chivalrous, and still be an alpha male. In the United States, I mean, they want to castrate you for that. Um, Use every method you have to meet people. I mean, if you want to meet people, develop your circle of friends and find your romance or whatever. You got to work at it, so sit down, make a plan, use every avenue. And when you go out, and you go in the store and you see a clerk that's kind of interested, see if you can break the ice. Maybe you can't for 9 of them, but maybe the 10th turns out to be, a good friend or a good time. Um, be secure. Your age and your looks don't matter. I mean, maybe they matter some, and for some of these girls, it will. Some girls, it's like, well, I don't want to date 3 years older than me, or that's too much. But that's a small percentage. For the most part, go back to the attitude. For the most part, that's not the key of what they're looking for. If anything, it can be a positive. I can tell you, being here, dressed like a bum, and with no money to throw at anybody, having absolutely no problem from 18 to 40. Um, be honest, have a goal to make friends, don't be a fool. Um, Now, a couple other options I would just quickly mention. I don't want this to be about it, but the escorts are called prepago, and basically it's like hour, 2 hours, whatever you want. They're primarily in Armenia, Manizales. They're primarily university girls that are just trying to pay for their expenses. They're not. There's no amount of clientele here to make it like a full-time thing for them. So it's hit and miss to get them once in a while. Maybe someday I'll tell you how I know that. I met a guy who owns an agency. So of course, like everything else, I ask him a billion questions. So that, if you're going to do that, it's anywhere from $30 to $50, I believe. And yeah, you can do that, but that's really not going to build the circle of friends. And that's as important as finding a girlfriend, I find. So that's my advice. And that can kind of derail you, I think. But, neither here nor there. I don't see it as it's legal here, and that's, or maybe you're not having luck and you can't go another day or something. I mean, it's an option, but I just advise you to focus on this network idea. I can't tell you the difference it's made in my life. Um, and another situation that you're going to run into every so often is basically agreements, almost like a business agreement. And you'll find this with maybe girls that are in university. I found one that's a medical student, and we dated, and we went out a few times. She was actually a lot of fun. She was 24, 25, I think, and she doesn't have a job because the university takes all her time, and her family, it's actually not even in this area, and so she really struggles. She wanted to have a situation where she could come by and stay overnight 2, 3 times a week, and I could just help her, with papers and school books and things like that, amounted to like 100 and something a month. But what I did discover, once I found out that there's girls doing that, they don't want to go be escorts, and they just want to be with one person, not feel like tramps. What I did find out was there's actually a fair amount of girls that are open-minded to do that, and the general range of that is like 400 to 800,000 pesos. that can be an option for somebody who's not looking for anything real serious, but they don't want to, whore around, or every moment you're with somebody, you're forking over, to an escort agency or something. So that actually is relatively easy to run into. Again, it doesn't suit where I'm at, but I would completely understand where, if there are certain situations where I could see that could be a very viable alternative. Um, Also keep in mind here about the divorce rate, because that loyalty is really important. If you meet somebody, make friends with them, date them for a little bit, they can become very loyal, and that's a nice feeling. Um, Keep in mind that they tend to be very emotional, very demonstrative. They glory in their emotions, even though they have the attitude about being pragmatic. They love to talk about being in love. They just love that. They love gestures of romance. Um, and if they're dating you, they want to be proud of you. So, act accordingly, but act right. They want to be proud of you. They want to be with you somewhere, and know that you're a good person. Uh, it's this community, how they're seen in their community, and if they feel good about you, then they can be proud to be with you. Um, Again, children, be very careful. Don't be a dirtbag. Don't try to lead some girl down the path with a couple kids if you don't really intend to do that. I shouldn't have to say that, but I thought it'd be important to say it anyway. Don't be cheap, but don't waste money. Don't throw money around. And again, I ended it by saying, which I already said earlier, I'm a 65-year-old fat man with no money. I dated over 50 girls in 2 months. I don't know how many from Manizales to here is a year's time. I would say maybe 80, and I'm not exaggerating at all. You saw the list just from the last month, and I'm not even dating them. But when I was actively doing it, I actually had to make a spreadsheet to keep track. So, but in the end, I had multiple good choices. I've got a lot of friends, and right now I'm trying to sort it out between a couple people. I'm seeing them on a regular basis, and we have regular, normal relationships. Um, yeah, more than a couple. But okay, let me get to these questions. Oh yeah. I'm curious, how do the women differ in Ecuador to Colombia? Looks, culture, value. Well, I think Colombia women are stunningly beautiful, and in general, there's a lot of fat, ugly girls here too, and there's more of them in Ecuador, but there are some beautiful women. If you saw my roommates uh, in my videos, I mean, they're gorgeous. The biggest thing I noticed in Ecuador, and why I realized that when I was ready to date, it wouldn't be the place, is they are so formal. What I told you that happens here a bit about, meet the parents and court for a period of time, and that's the norm there. Totally out of my sphere. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. Um, Values, similar values, and they're willing in Ecuador to break those values behind closed doors, but this facade, it's so strong there, it's so important there in the the uh, the racist aspect of it. I was never comfortable with, not just racist, but it's like they believe in upper class and lower class, and people on the coast are not as good as the people in the mountains, and it's just exhausting for me. I mean, can't we just, in Colombia, everybody is the same. So those are kind of the key differences. Not to, you can find a good girlfriend or wife in Ecuador, but your chances are 100 times better in Colombia. What about STD rates, attitudes, behaviors, accepted practices? I don't know what the STD rates are. And I will admit that I was careless a couple times. I think it's pretty common here to not necessarily worry too much about protection. You know, it's I don't know how to put this because I'm trying to boil down a whole bunch of scenarios into one answer. But but on the other hand, I was also, you know, pretty selective about who I was seeing as far as there were certain themes about people that I was seeing. And I said, have a wide umbrella, but some things are important, so they couldn't be fat. But I also was looking for people that had a job or they were in school, they were very busy in their life, didn't have any boyfriends, maybe hadn't had a boyfriend in a while. So I don't know how to explain this. I don't want to, I'm feeling uncomfortable. But I will say that, I mean, STDs are everywhere, but I haven't had to deal with anything like that. I don't know anybody that has. I think being selective goes a long way. Don't be with somebody that comes out of the barrios of drugs and poverty, and maybe I know it's not a sure way, and I'm careful much of the time, but I'll just say the attitudes are a little looser here. Reggaeton, thank you, thank you. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Um, it does go back almost 20 years because Gasolina by Daddy Yankee was pretty popular back then, but they were at the very beginning of it. And now it's become full blown, and reggaeton, which is basically Latin hip hop, is really what a lot of people are dancing to. Um, Bring them back to the States with age gap. Well, I have no intention of leaving, but I can tell you that if you're a 60-year-old man, you go back to the U.S. with a 18-year-old girl on your arm, everybody's going to look at you like you're a dirtbag. And personally, I wouldn't want to have that. I have no problem here dating a girl that's 18, 20, 25 because it's normal, it's accepted. I haven't had any problems like that. And I'm looking more for certain characteristics. I'm not sharing that with you today, but about what I'm looking for, and because that's a whole other thing, and that's just personal anyway. But as long as they have, a majority of the boxes ticked off that I want, the age is secondary. I prefer to be with somebody probably in their mid to late 30s? Yeah, I would prefer that. But if I find what I'm looking for potentially 20, 22, 25, I'm not going to say no. I mean, as long as they're mature enough and not acting like they're, idiots, then, I'll give that a shot. Because I'm not looking for deep romance or a wife. I'm looking for somebody to share the life I have, travel around, help me with my videos, spend time, enjoy life, and all the other stuff. I don't want the drama and the baggage with it. It becomes much less important. All right. Third IMVD. Yeah. Off topic. What do condo apartment owners on your building pay for building fees? I don't. What they pay, I don't know. I get the fees. If you own, then you're paying a fee. I honestly don't remember what it is. I've seen a bunch of them when I was looking for apartments where they would have the fee, and if you're renting from somebody that owns, they always tell you it's included, which makes sense. I mean, why charge extra when it's just going to go to him to pay anyway? I've never seen any that amounted to a lot. Like in Ecuador, you'd see them up to $50 to $100, and it was nothing like that. As I recall, it was more like $10 or $15. But I won't swear to that. You can't bank on that. But if you want to know, just go on Facebook and look up real estate apartments, or go on OLX, olx.com for Colombia, and you can find apartments. And if there's a fee, you'll see it. And sometimes, what I saw was a lot of times they had the fee listed and then they'd say included, so you can find it there, but not a lot. And the rent here in Armenia is cheaper than Manizales. It's way cheaper than Medellin, way cheaper. What people are spending $1,000 on there, I can get for $300 here. So you tack in a little building fee. I mean, it's really cheap here. It's cheaper than Cuenca. The rents are awesome here. Okay, anything else? Hour and a half. If you found value in this, I am trying to fundraise to get that camera. So if you want to contribute, I emailed you the information, Google Pay or GoFundMe, because you can't do the $ here. I know some of you tried, and I appreciate that, but it's just not for this one. I don't know that this video is ever going to see the light of day. I'll go back, I'll review it, maybe edit it, maybe someday it will. But this was really for you guys. A number of you requested, and I thought long and hard on it, decided to do it. So I hope you got something out of it. Am I on tomorrow? Yes, 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. I will be doing the coffee time. Anything else? How much is a concealable camera? It's the Osmo Pocket. It's really small, and it's got a round camera on the top and a built-in gimbal. Thing is really slick, and it doesn't look like a camera. And because it's small and doesn't look like a camera, and it's easy to hide and still keep its balance, so I don't have to worry about that. It's really perfect for what I need here. And I looked it up. It's $407, including shipping and taxes. The software I'm shooting for is $200. So basically, just over $600. What I'm trying to fundraise. What I've got before I started this is I got almost $200 towards it. So put a pretty good dent in it. Hopefully, some of you guys will think that this was pretty valuable, and we'll go and chip in and we'll try to get it. I have. In November, I'm going to be in Medellin. I'm meeting up with somebody there. I will be there for a while. And next week, I'm in Manizales. There's a lot of opportunities for me coming up soon to use that camera. So that's why I'm trying to get it as soon as possible. Okay, I can tell you. Hold on. Oh. Taxes, 2,800. They're 280. Whoo, tired. 280,000 pesos a year. So that's about $80 a year. That's pretty cheap. Yeah, those things, for us, even when I was poor, those things are pretty. I'm living in like a really nice place, as I mentioned, and even when I was struggling, even when I was living in poverty, my rent's $260 a month in this kind of place. I mean, if I were still in Ecuador, I would have had a real problem. But here, I can still live a really nice lifestyle and not break the bank. I was getting by on well under $1,000, and that's tough anywhere. For me, it was kind of tough because I built in some expenses, thinking I was where I'm supposed to be when the problem hit, and it's like, oh, but you learn you learn how to scrimp and go cheap, and it was a good lesson for me. Okay, all right, I think that's it. Thank you all for watching. I really hope it was worthwhile for you. Please send me any feedback, particularly in the email, because you won't be able to put comments once I click on this. So, see you later. Good luck. If you ever have any questions, shoot me off an email.